Welcome back. Time for our next fireside chat here at Sustainability Live Singapore. I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Ankit Todi, Chief Sustainability Officer at Mahindra Group, and our subject is sustainability and climate action. Ankit, hi, how are you?
Hi. Thank you for having me.
You're very, very welcome. I understand you're at a conference at the moment, so we might battle at times with the sound, but thank you so much for making the time to speak to us today. Where I'd like to start is how sustainability fits into Mahindra Group's vision. You've got operations in more than 100 countries, a huge footprint. It must be a huge strategy to actually fit in with that. Talk me through it. Talk me through the vision.
Absolutely. So let me start by this, giving a broad introduction to the Mahindra Group. The Mahindra Group is one of the large conglomerates in India, roughly 70 billion by market cap. We operate in about 20 different industries. There are about 6 listed companies within the group operating in spaces of auto manufacturing, farm and tractor manufacturing, real estate, hospitality, financing, IT services, and so on, which basically means that we are trying to integrate sustainability across a number of manufacturing as well as service sector industries. About 3 years back, we came up with this idea of building planet positive businesses, which is basically not just focusing on emission reduction, but how do we change the nature of the industries we operate in to operate in a planet positive manner. What does this mean? Very simply put, there are 3 aspects to it. The first aspect is very much focused on things that are directly in control of the company. So operational sustainability, things like emission reduction, especially scope 1 and scope 2 emission reduction, but also focusing on water, being a water positive company at a group level, focusing on waste management, sending zero waste to landfill. So being a waste-free company across all our businesses. And the fourth area of action was something called material circularity. How do we use low emission materials, especially in our manufacturing? How do we use more material which can be recycled? How do we use more recycled material across our operations? So that became the first pillar, anything and everything that is in direct operational control across all our environmental footprint. The second area, which is the most strategic area, that how do you integrate sustainability within the core business operations? So which is what we call decarbonizing the industries that you operate in. And now, again, taking some specific examples, in the auto manufacturing sector, moving from ICE vehicles to EVs, that's an example. In the hospitality sector, we are looking at green resorts, which are net zero energy wastewater resorts. In the residential real estate sector where we operate in, we are looking at net zero buildings. We have also a big play in the renewable energy space, 2 companies operating in that space. So the broad concept being that how can we sell more green products, or can we sell more green services, or can we be green enablers in some cases? And an example of that is green financing. So that's the second sort of area of action, that how do you change the core business model of the industry that you operate in? Some cases it's a bit easier, some cases it's about reaching to the entire strategy. The other part of this is also to take the entire supply chain and the ecosystem along, because most of these transitions, especially something like electric vehicle penetration, is not an area that you can work on your own. You really have to take the entire ecosystem along, government policy, charging infrastructure, supply chain ecosystem, etc. So how do you take that along? And the other area is also to look at newer business models. So for instance, one of the things that we do as a company is vehicle recycling. So how do you create a closed loop circular economy in the auto ecosystem? So that's the second part of our work within the Planet Positive framework. The third part of our work in the Planet Positive framework is things which are not directly business things, but are part of the larger ecosystem that we operate in. So what we call regenerating nature and just transition. So to give you specific examples, one of the main areas that we focus on is sustainable agriculture. We are a tractor company. We sell tractors. We are very closely linked with the farm economy of the country. So what can we do to help farmers build more climate resilience? How can we help them adapt to the realities of climate change in the future? So those are some areas of action. We have also been working on biodiversity conservation. So effectively, all the areas where you may not have an immediate business case, but effectively what you can do to keep that going. Apart from these things, I think focusing on the broader country level climate goals and climate advocacy is another area that we strongly focus on. So holistically, that's broadly what I call our planet positive strategy for climate transition and environment.
Thank you, Ankit. That's a fantastic breakdown of different parts of that vision. Where I'd like to go next is looking at some of the biggest challenges Mahindra face in their climate action efforts. How are you going about solving and overcoming those challenges?
So, as I said, that it's about really breaking down the bigger problem into its constituent parts. In some of these areas, the solutions are relatively clear and the business case is also strong. So, to give you an example, when it comes to our scope 1 and scope 2 emissions, they are about 500,000 tons. So, there the business case for transitioning to renewable energy or non-fossil fuel energy is relatively strong in the country. It's already cheaper to buy renewable power. It's also technologically possible to make that transition. So we are currently already at 30% renewable power, have a commitment to get to 100%. We have projects in place which will bring us to 60% in the next year or so, and so on. So those are the easier pieces. Obviously, it still requires a lot of policy work, working with different stakeholders, making business plans, experimenting with different kinds of technology, etc. Then there are other transitions which are not really only in the hand of the company, but are driven by external market factors. And I'll take the EV transition as an example. So we operate both in the three-wheeler ecosystem as well as the four-wheeler ecosystem. In the three-wheeler ecosystem, the business case for transitioning from petrol, diesel, CNG vehicles to EV vehicles is already very strong. And as a result, we'll see that both at a company level as well as a country level, we get to as close to 100% EVs in the three-wheeler ecosystem in this decade itself. But at the same time, when it comes to the four-wheeler ecosystem, we are still in early stages. So the penetration currently is in single percentage points. But we have already started investing. We have a pipeline of some very good electric vehicles in the four-wheeler segment as well, and we'll see hopefully a 30 to 40% penetration for the country. But again, that's not entirely in our control. It's a lot driven by what kind of policies the government brings in, what is the consumer perception around it, what is the kind of charging infrastructure that's growing in the country. So that's one part of the story. The other part of the story is also from a purely environmental standpoint. How do we ensure that the charging infrastructure that is available for EVs is big? So we, as a group, also have a big play in the renewable energy sector and are trying to see how can we move the national grid to become more greener over a period of time. I'll take a pause.
Thank you, Ankit. We are struggling very much with the audio quality, just with the amount of noise you've got in the background. We'll persevere with one more question, if you can hear me okay. When it comes to partnerships, can you hear me, Ankit?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'll persevere with one more question because the sound isn't great. How do you go about working with partners across Mahindra Group to achieve those sustainability goals? How critical is it you have great relationships within your partnerships to help achieve those goals?
Absolutely. So sustainability is an area which is very much about collaboration. So across most of the initiatives that we are working on, we have been working very closely with both our peer companies as well as a wide variety of external stakeholders. And now these external stakeholders are both a mix of government stakeholders to support the right kind of policy, as well as a number of industry associations and climate organizations. I'll take two specific examples to illustrate this point. The first one is our work in terms of renewable energy penetration. So there we have been working with organizations like Climate Group, which is generally the brain behind the New York Climate Week and a couple of other global climate organizations, to bring together all companies which are committed to 100% renewable energy in their operations, and are doing a lot of policy work at a very granular state-by-state level to sort of rectify any of the challenges there, as well as doing a number of events and conversations to share information both about different technology, different service providers, etc., to help us accelerate our journey towards renewable energy. The second big area where we have been doing a lot of work is around steel sector decarbonization. So when it comes to the auto industry and even the real estate industry, steel is one of the biggest components that's responsible for a big part of our scope 3 product purchase emissions. So there again, we don't manufacture steel, so we can't directly decarbonize it, but there is a role that we can play as a mature buyer in the ecosystem, as a large buyer in the ecosystem. So again, similarly, we have been working with a number of organizations. So World Economic Forum has a program called the First Movers Coalition on Green Steel, which brings together big buyers from around the world and exchange ideas and technologies, as well as engage with service provider, steel companies which are working on the decarbonization journey. Then at the India level also, we are working with different industry associations in the steel ecosystem to share knowledge on what are the best practices, also working together to create a policy paper to identify the role of the government in terms of green procurement, etc. We have also been working with the Swedish government on this subject. They have a platform called Lead IT. So what I'm trying to basically say that a lot of the challenges when it comes to decarbonization, especially in the hard to abate sector, are often challenges that a company cannot solve on its own. It will really require them to work with both peer group companies, their supplier ecosystem, and the government, importantly, to make the business case a bit stronger. So that's some examples. We obviously are doing similar things in a few other areas. Tire recycling, battery recycling. As I said, energy efficiency is another big area of focus for us. So all of these things generally support decarbonization, but also not just focused on carbon emission, but on material waste reduction and water conservation, etc. So we focus a bit more holistically beyond carbon as well in our work on environment.
Ankit, thank you very much indeed. I'm afraid we are hearing from the audience they are struggling to get a clear sound from you just because you're at a conference and there is so much background noise. So we are going to have to wrap things there. I thank you so much for joining us and being generous with your time, but I think we've just been beaten by the environment you're in terms of sound.
It's unfortunate. We'll hopefully have another opportunity to do this. It was a little beyond my control today.
Absolutely.
But thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
I will absolutely hold you to that as well. Mark my words. Ankit, thank you so much for joining us here at Sustainability Live Singapore, and enjoy the rest of your conference.